Hello, my name is Josh, and welcome back to Josh's Bookish Voyage. Today, I'm giving you my February TBR, aka my Blackathon TBR. I am very excited, as always, to be participating in Blackathon. I am actually going to be trying to participate in one specific team. I wasn't originally planning on that, then I looked over the prompts and I realized I actually think I could probably get these prompts satisfied. The team I'm going to be focusing on, because I'm actually going to be trying to go for two teams, is going to be Team Hatshepsut, I believe is how it's pronounced. The team is inspired by Egypt's longest running female and gender-defiant pharaoh. The prompts are based around her aspects of her life and reign. So the first one is going to be a book or genre by a trans black dysphoric author. And for this one, I'm actually giving myself a few choices to choose from. However, I only plan on reading one of these. It's either going to be The Unbroken by an author who I just recently realized is actually on the non-binary or trans spectrum. This is one that I really need to read, if only because I requested the ARC when it first came out and I still haven't reviewed it. I've just found myself extremely intimidated by it because it's one of those high fantasy worlds with a lot of world building, so I'm a little intimidated, but I really want to try and read it. The problem is, for me, I've been in a bad headspace of late. I've been doing a lot of rereading, and whether or not I read this book will heavily depend on whether or not I feel like once I start it, I'm really grasping what's going on, because I just don't know. I don't want to get myself in a slump because I'm trying to push through a book that I'm just not in the headspace to read. But if I don't get to it, I'm going to read one of Ikweikwe Emezi's books. I might read their own memoir, Dear Synthron, or I might read Pet. Pet is, I think, the safest bet, because when I talk about being in the right headspace, I think a middle grade book like Pet would probably be the easiest book for me to be able to get immersed in when I need something a bit more comforting. So that's probably going to be my fall through if I don't feel compelled, if I don't feel like I'm in the right headspace for these other two. A black girl protagonist who is not afraid to be loud, confrontational, take up space. A consequence of my not being in a great headspace of late, because I've just been very sad here living across the world for everyone I know and love for 2 months now in Australia, in case you don't know, is I didn't get through all my books in January because I ended up rereading a lot of comfort reads. One of those books that I want to and intend to read this month is going to be Shirley Chisholm by Antasia C. Curwood. And this is a biography about Shirley Chisholm, who was a senator, a feminist, and the first black woman to ever run for president. And I think it's safe to say that she definitely fits into this idea of a black woman or a black protagonist who is not afraid to take up space to try and make a difference. I also am including in this category The Woman Could Fly by Megan Giddings, who is, I think, most well known for her work, Lakewood, but for whatever reason, I felt more compelled to read this one. I'm in the mood for something witchy and horror-y, and I also saw this being related to Octavia Butler as well as Shirley Jackson. It just is what I need right now. Somebody who alludes to or pulls from my favorite type of authors. That way it's a bit of a comforting read without having to reread the things I've already read. So that's really why I'm being drawn to this book here. Next up is a book of any genre with an impressive creative architecture or set largely in one building. So this could work for The Unbroken if I read that one, because that's a pretty, I think, intense world building. I think that works as architecture. The one I'm going to be focusing on primarily here is going to be A Space Between Worlds, which is a multiversal story that I've heard really good things about. And it's one of those books that I've been putting off only because it's one of those things where I don't want to read all the books I'm really excited to read all at once, because then I won't have things to look forward to. Given my headspace, I think this is a good time for me to focus on a book that I think I have really good reasons to suspect it'll be something I really like, because I love a good multiversal story. And I've heard good things about this one, so I'm hoping it will not disappoint. I don't actually know much about it beyond that. I know I've heard things before, I just don't remember the details. But it's one that I feel confident I will get to this month, because it's just what I would constitute a comfort read based solely on the premise and the type of story that it is. I'm also going to include in this category Nana by Brandon Massey. This is one that I've heard great things about. It's another horror book that I'm hoping will be really good. I love a good horror family drama, one that is centers around family members, and I believe it follows this this older woman who gets almost adopted into this family and is brought into this household. I originally thought it was about an older woman who is the grandmother, but maybe she is a grandmother, but they're just now learning that she's a grandmother. Something about her is new and out of place, and they don't have a history with her. And from my understanding, it's centered heavily in this household. So I'm thinking that works as an architecture. A book with a lavishly wealthy characters or explores class. For this one, I think Shirley Chisholm's biography will work well as someone who was a politician. Obviously, one of the things in which she targeted was class and inequities as well. So I think that one would fit here. That said, I'm also hoping to read Michelle Obama's newest memoir, I don't have the name here. A Light Something. And while that one, I don't think is strictly about class, I know it's about overcoming the current crisis, and I think is meant to be uplifting, and I imagine there has to be some conversation of class in there, but that's maybe a bit of a stretch there, I'm not sure. But still, those are the two that I'm fitting here in this category. The bonus book is She Would Be King, and this is one that I'm mildly intrigued by, but it's not on my TBR. Chances are it won't be something I read. Then I'm going to go ahead and also try and read. I'm going to try and satisfy the prompts for the team Granny Nanny. This is secondary. It's just I realized a lot of the books that I want to read are books that are still going to satisfy these prompts. That is, there are other books I want to read. So let's get to them here. The first one is a charming protagonist who is spiritual or has fantastical abilities. The Woman Who Could Fly, being a witch story, could satisfy this prompt, I believe. Also, Remembrance by Rita Woods. This is one that I guess I haven't mentioned yet. This is a historical fiction, magical realist story following a modern day character, a woman from Haiti who gets, I think, immigrated into, or rather taken and moved to, I believe, New Orleans, and then another person who was, I believe, a slave in New Orleans during a different time period. And I believe there's something about the woman who's in modern day who seems to have some connection to these past characters in a way that might be magical. This may be a stretch because I'm not entirely sure how far that's rooted. She's also, I think, one of three main characters. I mean, you can only say so much about a story without actually having read it. So that's the one I'm thinking would satisfy this book here, satisfy this prompt here. A book set in Jamaica or on an island. And again, this is Remembrance by Rita Woods. This one, given that one of our main characters starts in Haiti, so technically it should satisfy this prompt. I don't know what the rules are about using one book for the same prompts. I got the impression that should be okay, but it's part of why I'm considering this team my secondary team, because I feel like I'm cheating just on a personal level. We're going to include it just because, it's just for fun. So let's keep moving. A book centering a tight-knit group of friends or unlikely allies. This was one I wasn't sure really fit, but I'm going to include Me, Mom, and Mom. It is the last autobiography memoir by Maya Angelou. I don't really know how tight-knit this family is. I mean, and yes, I do, because I've read her past 6 memoirs, but I don't know how big of a theme that will be in this book. I suspect the family ties will be a major plot point here, but I'm not entirely sure how solid of a connection this is. Nevertheless, it seemed to fit, so we're here now. The bonus book here is Tochi Onyebuchi's Riot Baby, which I have already read. Won't be rereading it for this, absolutely not. Technically, I've already read it, so I guess that works for this prompt, for this group, this team. And then there were 2 other books that I could not fit, one of which is not actually going to be a part of Blackathon at all. It's a new release. I'll go ahead and tell you that one. Our Share of Night by Marina Enriquez, a book that I think was on my 5-star prediction list and one of my most anticipated for the year. This is a book that I think was compared to films like Hereditary, and I believe it's a family drama following this young man who is taking after his father in playing some role in this demonic satanic cult. I think maybe Talking to the Dead, I don't know. It's supposed to be rooted in family and family drama specifically and horror. So it was one that I'm actually highly anticipating. It's coming out this month. So I'm hoping to try and get to it. It's the only book that isn't going to be fitting into the Blackathon readathon. I'm going to prioritize my Blackathon reads mostly, but I am hoping to get to this one. I think I have here 10 books total. The last one here that I haven't mentioned yet is going to be Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. A book that I just couldn't make to fit in any of these prompts. Perhaps I can after the fact, but as it stands, my understanding is this is a semi-autobiographical story about a young boy growing up in Harlem with a preacher for a father and just trying to find a place in the world. The genres as listed on Goodreads seem to hint that it is queer, which I guess I would have expected that to be queer if it was a true autobiography of Baldwin's life. Nevertheless, it is his first novel, which is why I'm getting this one. I've read several of his works. I believe all the books that I've read so far are his only queer works. And now that I'm through those, I want to go back to his backlog and start working my way through all of his works. Which, on that note, I believe there might actually be a reading project coming up that should be announced pretty soon in regards to that. Hope not by me, by somebody else. I will share that once it happens. I don't think it's happened as the time I'm recording this, but if it is, I'll make sure I link to it. Still really excited for that. I love James Baldwin. I'm pretty certain that every book I've read by him has ended up on my top fiction books of the year every time I read it, so he has yet to disappoint. They can be at times challenging, but the most challenging books by him have been some of the most rewarding. While I have not heard a lot about this, while this may not be his most popular work, I'm nevertheless extremely excited to be delving into it. I can't have my hands on the table while I'm shaking or I'm clapping, otherwise it's going to shake the camera. Why can't I figure that out? Okay, and those are all the books. I do have like 4 or 5 maybes on this list, but I'm not going to mention them because I know it's not practical to get through all of these. I had to prioritize some works. But if we're being honest, given my state of mind of late, there might be some mood reading which might end up pulling me to my maybe list. But that's not why we're here. I have to commit to something. Things can change. We all understand that, hopefully. Let me know, are you participating in Blackathon? And either way, what are you reading this month? As always, hope you have a great day and hope you stay safe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.